Well, I thought I'd try something a little bit different on this video. I'll actually be talking about something, and I'll be talking about my new Ruger Super Red Hawk Alaskan and 454 Casull. Basically, I'll explain some of the things that I've done to this gun in terms of upgrades, enhancements, ways that I think makes the gun more efficient in its operation. And basically what I did when I got this gun was I completely disassembled it, 99.9% disassembly. I took everything off the frame except the firing pin, which is right here. There's a pin that holds it in, and it's finished into the frame. So unless you absolutely have to replace that, it's best just to leave it alone. You don't want to mess up that finish. But I completely took everything out, cleaned it, lubricated it properly. I removed any burrs, any coarse edges, anything that I thought would hinder the performance in any way. And one of the things that I did do, one of the first upgrade enhancement I did, was the front sight. And I have a HiViz fiber optic red sight, and it's nice and bright, and it definitely helps when you aim with this. It's a lot better for me than a black ramp, so it's a definite plus, I think. The only downside, if you want to call it a downside, is you have to drive that pin out, which when the gun is new, it's finished right in there, and it looks just like the firing pin back here. It's nice and smooth, but oh well, you know. I got a fiber optic sight on the front though. And one thing about the fiber optic sights, if you look into replacing this, just a little word of caution. My buddy has the 44 mag version, and he wanted fiber optic sight. So I said, well, yeah, sure, we can do that. It's no big deal. Mine came out real nice. But there was a little issue. This here is my original front sight, and as you can see, there's not much material at the bottom of that hole where the pin goes through. On his, it was this hole for the front sight, it was drilled a 64th or so lower than mine. So his didn't come out too good. That's basically what happened to his when we drilled it. It's basically, it doesn't have enough metal to hold the pin. But after we did that, we found that this sight actually had less material at the bottom than the stock sight. Stock one actually just had just a little bit more material. So we're going to order a new one and see if we can't get it to work. But on his stock sight, his was so close to the bottom, it was actually like this. This part, the metal was basically gone here, but there was enough to capture the pin, and the sight, you know, stayed in there fine. But that would be an issue that you may have to deal with. So just be aware of that. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about was the hammer strut. I mean, you don't really think much of it, but I have found that mine was actually bent, and it's really not it's not a precision, no precision metal work happening here. This is just a stamped out piece of metal, and it has some rough edges on it. It's real, some of it was real coarse. This one's not too bad. My original one in the 7.5 inch barrel was pretty coarse, and I smoothed that out. I knocked some of that roughness off with a file real lightly. Just got rid of the roughness, and I made sure it was straight. This one actually has a bow in it. I don't know if you can see it there or not, but put it on a flat surface, and you press one end and the other end goes up like a little seesaw action. You know, it's not straight. So basically what I did was I straightened it. I have one here that I straightened. I polished it. I got all nice smooth edges, and especially the ball end, which rides on the hammer right here. This little spot here I actually polished in here as well. Don't know if you can see that too well, but I polished that so I have two smooth surfaces, and that joint actuates very smoothly. As before, I had a burr, and there was actually like a little groove that was getting cut into it, and but I took care of that. So this makes sense to me. If this is crooked, and when you pull the trigger, it's going to want to maybe cock the hammer a little bit, and it just makes sense that you want this straight so it pushes straight up on the hammer. And also you want it nice and smooth. Any metal that bears on it, you want it to be smooth, less friction. I would think more energy transferred from the spring. So that's what you want. You want the tension from the spring to be released completely without being hindered in any way to the hammer. So that's my thinking on it. It's smooth, straight. It makes sense to me. So you can let me know what you think about that. But anyways, that was one thing. The other thing that I did was on the trigger guard. We have the trigger guard latch, and then the trigger guard spring is in here. Then there's the trigger link plunger, and let me take this off so it don't fall off. And then it might be tough to see, but the little rod that goes into here is the trigger link. And next time you take your gun apart, clean it or whatever, you have this out, check and see how it feels. Hang on to this here, the cylinder latch, just so it don't go anywhere. But take it and pull the trigger and see how it feels. See if you feel any roughness, any grit, if it's smooth or not. This one's completely smooth all the way because I've taken everything out. I polished the channel for the spring and the plunger. I polished the trigger guard latch and the plunger, so I have smooth surfaces bearing on a smooth surface. And then you lubricate it, and it just flows. It's nice and smooth, no binding, nothing. And actually these vary quite a bit, I have found. The one for this gun, it was very hard to get the trigger assembly out, the trigger guard latch out. And I'm not sure why. It was pretty tough on my buddy's 44 as well. But I couldn't get, I pushed the pin out, but I couldn't get the trigger latch. It wouldn't come out because there was a big nasty burr, a hunk of metal inside there. It was holding it up. Couldn't get it out. Actually had to get a pair of needle nose pliers, and I had to work this thing out, get it past that hunk of metal. And the same with the spring, had to work it out. So I got all that junk out of there, and I smoothed it out, used some 320 or 600 grit sandpaper around the drill bit, got in there, and I just worked it until it got nice and smooth, made it nice and smooth, and polished it, got it real nice and clean. And some of these, if you look in there, like one of them had a bunch of spirals cut in there. I guess, you know, they don't clean their bits or whatever, however they drill these. Drill them out, mill them out. It had grooves in it. This one had grooves in it. My buddy's 44 was pretty nice, but it was a little rough in the inside, so I smoothed that out. But it just goes to show the variances in the different guns. You could have a good one. You could have one that's got a hunk of metal in it that is keeping you from doing a trigger spring upgrade. So, you know, like I said, you just never know how well your gun is made. And that's the whole point, you know, complete disassembly. I took everything, all this was taken apart. And it was cleaned, lubricated, and put back together. And anything that was rough, burrs, whatever, I smoothed it out. So that's pretty much it for that. But I would say that I'm real happy with this gun. It's a pleasure to shoot. This thing is it's just cool. Shooting 45 long Colts was a pleasure. Real nice, real accurate. I couldn't believe how accurate I was with this thing. At 15 yards, I was keeping them in, you know, 5-inch groups at least, and I was getting quite a few right in the bullseye. I was surprised how accurate I was with this gun. With the full 454 Casull loads, though, I have some, basically, I guess you can call them my entertainment rounds. They are 240 grain hollow points that I load up pretty hot, and I mainly shoot those in the indoor range. And I do that, you know, for entertainment. You go in there and you start blasting those things off, and people go crazy. They're, you know, oh geez, what are you shooting over there? You know, they lose their mind sometimes. I've driven some people out. Some people just go nuts when they hear this thing go off. They lose their minds, and it's just the reaction is funny. It's entertaining. It's good stuff. So, but those, my entertainment rounds, when I shoot those in the 7.5-inch barrel, it's no big deal. But this thing, it's real snappy. It's got a real sharp kick to it, and so those really aren't too fun to shoot in this gun. But my hunting loads, those are fine. It's no big deal. And even with the 44 mag version, my buddies, I had some pretty hot 44 mag loads. I let them shoot, and that gun was it just ate up that recoil. I couldn't believe it. You gotta feel it. You gotta shoot it to experience it. It was real impressive. It just blew my Smith & Wesson away. My 629 with an 8 3/8 inch barrel. Recoil wise, this is it. That 44 mag Alaskan, a lot better. You can't beat it. It was really impressive. But this, I'm real happy that I got it. And if you can find one, I say get it. If you're not a 454 Casull fan, get the 44 mag. You won't be sorry. But this thing is great. This is definitely going. It's going backpacking. It's going gold panning. It's going everywhere. This is a real cool gun. And I think that I just about talked enough in this video. So if you have any comments, questions, gripes, if you don't like something, go ahead, send it my way. But it's a real cool gun, and I hope y'all enjoyed this. If you learned something or think it's a good idea, that's good. If you don't think it's a good idea, well, let me know. My guns work fine. They're nice and smooth. So anyhow, that's it, and thanks for watching.